The ego of perfection. Most of us have fantasies of perfection, but it's our attachment to such fantasies that keep us from flowing with how our life really is. For instance, when a mother planned her son's housewarming, she spent over $40,000 on the arrangements, perfecting each detail. Despite the fact that she had fused for months, she was nevertheless extremely anxious when the day arrived. As it turned out, the occasion was punctuated by what this mother saw as disaster after disaster. The day began with an unexpected thunderstorm. Thankfully, she had planned for such a possibility and had a tent backup. Then the DJ was caught in heavy traffic, which meant he arrived an hour late. Shortly after, the boy's mother noticed that her son had become somewhat tipsy and was being rowdy in front of her relatives and high society friends. Feeling utter embarrassment, the mother was devastated and livid. Though she managed to maintain her image of the perfect mother as long as her guests were present, she unleashed her fury on everyone around her when they departed, ruining her son's revelry and shaming him in front of his buddies, who were spending the night at the house. On the heels of her explosion, she got into a fight with her husband, then created a scene with the DJ. Because the occasion hadn't lived up to her expectation, she made everyone miserable. Then, when our life doesn't go according to plan and we respond with resistance and emotional velocity, it's because we feel threatened. Our fantasy of how life should be falls apart. Our egoic need to control things shows itself. Unable to accept that our loved ones and life itself aren't our automatons. Here we bend to our will, we impose our manic desire to look a certain way on everyone and everything. What we can't see is that holding onto the fantasies that life is supposed to have a fairy tale ending often comes at the price of our loved one's well-being. When we parent from the traditional approach, we encourage our children to look up to us because this is how we were raised. To be good parents, we feel we need to be all-knowing and all-powerful. Little do we realize that when we portray ourselves as so competent, we foster inhibition and fear in our children. They look at us and see an image so out of reach that it causes them to feel inordinately small. In this way, we imprint in them the idea that they are less than us, which discourages them from getting in touch with their own competence. When our children experience us as always in the know, always there with a perfect solution or a correct opinion, they grow up believing they need to be the same way. Uncomfortably with our imperfections and resistant to exposing our flaws, we teach them to disguise their imperfections and overcompensate for their weaknesses. What they really need to learn is that perfection is an ideal of the foolish. The goal isn't to be flawlessly perfect, as the mother tried to be with respect to her son's housewarming occasion, but to embrace her perfectly flawed self, and in mother's case, embrace the fact that her son is also flawed like her and may mess up at the most inappropriate moment. It's important to release our children from the illusion that we always have it together. Something we can only do once we have released ourselves from the grip of being perfect parents. When you are comfortable acknowledging your flaws and daily mistakes, not in a self-flagellating manner but in a matter-of-fact manner, you convey to your children that mistakes are inevitable. By laughing at your errors and readily admitting your insecurities, you remove yourself from the pedestal of wonder. Setting aside hierarchy, you encourage your children to relate to you as human to human, spirit to spirit. How sad that the mother who organized the housewarming occasion couldn't laugh at all the things that went awry. She had done so. She would have taught her son one of the most valuable lessons he could ever learn, that of total acceptance of what is, including his misplaced behavior. All we need to do is model. When our children realize that we are perfectly okay with our okayness, it encourages a feeling of competence within them. By delighting in our follies, we teach them not to take themselves too seriously. By being willing to make a fool of ourselves as we try new things, we teach them to explore life with little care for how they look or perform. I wonder whether the mother who planned the housewarming occasion so perfectly ever purposely acted silly in front of her son, dancing and singing, or did something out of her element to demonstrate she is a human and fallible. To do so encourages our children to step out of their comfort zone and enter unfamiliar territory. I wonder whether she played with her son and his friends at a child's level, not hesitating to bend on her knees and bray like a donkey or become the frog prince. When our children see us come down to their level, it equalizes the dynamic between us, allowing them to connect to us in a playful, non-threatening manner. I wonder too whether this mother ever allowed herself to trip, fall, break, bend, blush, splush, cry, or froth in front of her son. Within measure, instead of trying to hide these aspects of her humanity, did she ever demonstrate that she was okay with her house not perfectly clean, her nails not perfectly manicured, her makeup not perfectly in place? When we do so, we show our children that good enough is absolutely good enough. We do ourselves and our children a favor when we accept our limitation and exude an okayness with being okay. In this way, our children are encouraged to become comfortable with who they are, able to see the humor and lightness in themselves, and thereby detach from the impossible rigidity of ego. Stay blessed and be blessed.